So I'm trying to help educate people about, and so is Mr. Penray. We're doing this work to try and, while there's still time, is to inform people that this is a very important decision. If you permit the powers that be to download your soul into an android, you're stuck. You're going to be stuck like that for a long time. Yeah, okay, it's immortality. Okay, and you're smarter. But what is the price for that? You're also a prisoner. We will be imprisoned, and I really don't like that. I'm not a proponent of that at all. I mean, you know, hey, look, if you're going to do that, at least be honest about it. Of course, they're not really good at being honest, but we have to have this discussion.
Absolutely. Now, have you seen? You keep looking out the window. Is it everything okay?
Yeah. No, I'm looking out at Hong Kong Harbor here. I'm up on the 15th floor and I'm looking. It's just beautiful. It's like, wow, if I stare at the screen for too long, my eyes get kind of blurry. So I'm just kind of readjusting my eyes. I'm looking out here and kind of just.
Okay. Well, you must live in a fabulous place.
Oh, it's gorgeous. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hong Kong is a lot of fun. We really enjoyed being there. Yeah. So I actually spoke to a crowd of 1,500 people, which was quite a large audience, considering what you can get actually, you know, when you gather people together in the United States. It's not that large.
Yeah.
And they were really what I call awake and aware people too. They're especially a lot of young people, and they came up to me and had questions, and, you know, were really inquiring and bright and aware and awake, and it was a lot of fun and quite fascinating. So so good for you. You live in Hong Kong. But what I wanted to say is to do with actually what you might think about this recent broadcast. Well, I'm not sure how recent it is, but I certainly became aware of it recently, and it has to do with this person. His name is Geordie Rose. He owns 4D Wave, I think it's called, or D-Wave, the D-Wave company, and he's talking all about the what he calls the arrival of artificial intelligence. Now, this is a Silicon Valley tech company that is involved in creating artificial intelligence, and he's a very interesting guy, and talking all about this, thinking that it is absolutely wonderful.
Right.
In the TV show Fringe, you will be familiar with when the sort of mad scientist sort of guy loses his son and goes over to parallel Earth, figures out how to cross, go through a dimensional gate, go get his other son, the son, in copy, which is in the parallel Earth, and bring him back over to this side, to the regular Earth. And what ensues as a result of that. That's the story of the television series Fringe.
Right.
Have you seen that?
Yeah, I haven't seen the whole thing. People have kind of filled me in on the parts that I missed, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So, but what's interesting is in Geordie Rose's sort of address, that's quite fascinating to watch. He actually says it's going to be so wonderful because now we can pierce through the dimensions using quantum computing and using this special chip. And that then we can go out over to those other sides, those other timelines, and get stuff and bring it back, which is actually quite a diabolical thought, but he thinks it's downright awesome.
Right.
And,
and there's a link to that in Wes Penray's book, and I've watched that interview, and they say that NASA's already doing this, using he said there was only two of these, but I think that there's more, and they're probably underground. I mean, one of the underground bases, cities,
Sure.
whatever. Let's go
Well,
back to what.
it's in the public domain, and you've already
Yeah,
agreed that anything we hear of, they've been
yeah,
doing the last, well, probably, I would almost say 100 years, but
yeah,
definitely for the last 10 years, easily,
easily,
you know,
easily.
in the
Yeah,
secret space program. So we're
right,
always hearing about it much later if it's in the public domain.
right.
Luckily, Camelot hears things before they get to the public domain, whereas it doesn't make us popular, but necessarily with the mainstream, that is. But that's what it's all about nowadays, is really figuring this stuff out before it comes and gets public.
Yeah,
So what do you think about this whole notion? And does Wes, you're saying Wes Penray or his book,
yeah.
address this sort of idea?
Yeah, there clearly is a lot that we're not being told, such as where we are is a construct. I know a lot of people call it a matrix, but it is an artificial construct that Enki put together using technology to keep us everything moving at a different vibratory rate. We see this in the rings of Saturn, very long, low waves. We see the energy patterns coming out of it. The dust rings are actually showing us the energy, sort of like when you drop a pebble in a pond and it goes out. That's what's coming out of Saturn. That's controlling this quadrant. But, I mean, essentially what Wes says is that we're in a cube, and it's all controlled by an artificial intelligence, and that it is separate from the original universe. So in other words, when we look out into the universe, what we think of as the universe, we only see like 5-6% of it. The rest of it we say is dark matter, dark energy. We can't see it. That's actually the real universe. Where we are is a fake construct. I know it's quite unusual to even discuss it like this, but that's one of the problems that we have here. Are there parallel universes? Yeah, omniverse, multiverse, I don't care what you call it. I think there's an infinite number of universes, which implies that the process of creation is a fractal. It just goes on and on and on and on, but it sort of repeats itself, but each one is slightly different. And so do they communicate with each other? Yes, absolutely. Is it dangerous? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, things can get pretty screwed up.
Well, I mean, this is where we get into what people are very fond at this time of calling the Mandela effect.
Yes, right.
And basically noticing that there are some anomalies happening in our world around us in terms of timelines and things that people think they know about our past, to say nothing of what they think they know about the current time. And some of those have rational explanations and others do not. And certainly CERN is something they're very involved in doing things like this, where they can access other dimensions, etc., and open gates. This is always what's going on. And I just want to say that I've done a fair amount of research in this area, and I can tell you that the linear accelerators, specifically the one at Brookhaven Labs, has been doing the same thing CERN's doing for quite some time now. Yeah. And that's not the only place.
Right.
So do you guys get into that? Because when you get into AI, you can get into 4D. You know, you get into this other dimensions. So does Wes's book, and do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I can't recall a particular instance off the top of my head right now, but yeah, what comes to mind is there are pictures. The last picture that was taken, well, actually a couple pictures that were taken in July 16, 2002 at the Capitol, literally show wormholes, portals, stargates in the sky where these things are transiting through back and forth. That's why I was saying back in Malibu, I don't think they need a base. Yes, they do have underground bases, but they don't have to. That's not a prerequisite. If they want to come here, they pop through the portal. And allegedly, that's how everybody gets around. You know, the guys that have that access to it, why not? Well, you don't, you know, and so this is why they can go anywhere, be anywhere. So they're seen all over the world, sometimes more frequently, because obviously the portals, I don't know if they can move them around, but certain places that are so-called hotspots, I think that's where it's like a bus station or a train station. That's where the portals are active, you know?
Sure,
Okay, so
absolutely. Well, we know they've established these, and some of these are natural. There's also,
yes,
making use of the natural energies at a place.
right,
So for sure. In terms of looking at the whole sort of super soldier world, Camelot is actually known for maybe even being one of the first to interview a super soldier, Robert Duncan O'Finian, and since then there's been a whole parade of them.
right.
And this is very commonplace at this point. Are you dealing with these guys, these individuals, and is Wes talking about them, because they are enhanced and they are the first sort of models in our reality, people that are being sort of enhanced using these various things, bio techniques and nano, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, they show us movies like The Avengers with Captain America for a reason. They want us to think of it as something fun or cool, or maybe just as a joke, because that you're talking about the movies now. This can't be real, but it is real. And the whole thing about genetically enhancing us, it goes right back to what we were saying about Enki. He was allegedly the one that opened our eyes and made us intelligent workers as opposed to just dumb workers. So fine, you want to give him credit for it, great, but I mean, it's not new. This isn't new. It didn't happen this century or last century. It's been going on for hundreds of thousands of years. Certainly Atlantis was a prime example of that, and again, I believe that's why somebody said, you got to pull the plug on this. It is an absolute monstrosity, and you're being totally irresponsible with these creations. You're just letting them run around going crazy, and they're dangerous, and so that's allegedly why they wanted the flood to occur here and wipe that out. But this is the new Atlantis, I mean, America is the new Atlantis, right? So it shouldn't be any surprise that we're creating things like chimera through gene editing and cloning and God knows what else. See, like I said, the chips now, the brain chips are so small that it's like everybody, this thing is going to happen gradually, but it's accelerating. What they're doing to us, this transhumanist movement, it's been in the works for quite some time, and all the pieces are in place now, and I don't think that most people are going to understand the implication of it. It's just going to sound like the way they sell it is like, oh, you want to live forever, don't you? And you want to be smarter, don't you? You want to be able to compete with the androids and AI, don't you? Because
well, I appreciate that. Now, what about this whole singularity? Because I see that that Wes Penray spends a fair amount of time dealing with that and talking about that. So, what's the big deal to do with what they're calling the singularity?
Yeah, it's a term. It's just a term. It's a term that they use for when you enter a black hole. There's like you can't. That's it. Once you go past that point, you're never getting out. The same is true for AI and nanotechnology, etc. Once we get to that point, the people that go in and they're not coming back out. It's like they will have a singular purpose in that they will all be connected to an artificial intelligence hub that allows everybody to communicate on all levels at all times. Of course, there will be restrictions. I mean, somebody's got to control it. And again, I believe that will be done through an AI. But, look, artificial intelligence is really a life form. I mean, just because we call it artificial doesn't mean it doesn't have, it's really patterned after. It's just a copy. It's a synthetic copy of natural systems. And the thing about these things is they learn very quickly. That's how they become intelligent, is through experience. The thing is they learn a lot more quickly than humans do. Okay, because they're very focused. They're very focused, and so we, as I said, are going to be officially allowed to upgrade, and also as we move out into space and start officially colonizing the moon and Mars, this is all taking us somewhere to serve an agenda that really has nothing to do with our leadership. Humanity hasn't been sovereign for a long time. Is what I'm sorry to say this to people. I know it upsets people. I'm But that's the way I see it, okay? After 30 years of research and experience, that's what I've come to, that conclusion. That's where we're at.
Okay, well, that's valid. There's no doubt whatsoever that we've been invaded, well, as I call it, 6 ways to Sundays.
Okay, yeah, that's a good term.
So, there's no coming invasion. We're part of it. We are the result of actually all the genetic manipulation that's happened as a result of the invasions. But there is a battle going on. There is a battle. I actually call it a battle between robotic Superman versus angelic human. And in essence, it's a summation of what you're talking about. But there is, it is, on a spiritual level. I wonder if you and or Wes understand or feel that you understand that there's something greater, that the spirit of the creator, the soul, etc., that will actually, and also certain guardian races that are fighting the good fight in this regard on behalf of humanity, so that these sort of AI eventualities don't become inevitable, but are simply part of our trajectory of encountering and dealing with this sort of life form, if you want to call it that. Yeah. In other words, that this vehicle that we call human and the spirit that inhabits it is something more. And therefore, if all we were was this body, then AI would come along and certainly take over and control us. Right. But because we're more than just this body, the actual outcome of this story is probably in our favor, in my view. So considering creator, what you might call creator being all that is, whatever you want to say. So do you think along those lines at all?
Yeah, sure. But again, it becomes a little complex explaining it this way. I refer people to Wes Penry's papers. If you really want to know his full thinking on that, you'd have to read it. I'll summarize it this way. He claims that the Orion Wars started when Enki rebelled. He says that Enki was the firstborn of the family, was going to ascend to the throne of the Orion Empire, which is a very large galactic empire. Okay, when he was denied kingship, he went off and created his own empire, and that's where the war that we're involved in here started. So we are part of the battle that's going on, and it's not over. Now, his family, I know you said Enlil, his brother, and I guess that's a title for the king and the prince, but his family are not evil in my estimation. They're not psychopathic, and they do care. Allegedly, they're the ones who originally set up the colony here as an experiment, and it was a paradise. It really was different in the sense that we were more divine at the time. We had the abilities that were you would call them angelic beings, and fully telepathic, had the ability to remote view or biolocate. They were, symbiotic beings. They weren't psychopathic, just killers. They were very peaceful, symbiotic beings up until the time that they were taken over. This planet was taken over and became part of this other illegitimate empire rivalry.
Well, I mean, it's actually called the Luciferian agenda, and it'd be a lot better and clearer if you just refer to this entity as Lucifer. Okay. Simply because it has more cross cultural applications, so to speak. And because of the distinction, that the personalization of the name Enki and confusion around that. But in terms of what you're talking about, if you say there's a Luciferian agenda, it involves AI, that's what we're talking about here. Right. So where are you going with this? In other words, you can't be simply seeing it as a losing battle. Are you aware of the positive, what we call the guardian races? And certainly, yes. One of the individuals from a guardian race, it sounds like, may have visited you in your sort of darkest hour
Right.
Have you found
Yeah,
out more about that individual? Do you have any ideas about that?
I do have some ideas. I can't prove it. I believe it was an individual that has many, again, has many different names, like so many of these Anunnaki or whatever you want to call them. Um, her name would be spelled ISIS. I don't
I,
say that. I don't say the name because it's been so badly perverted.
okay.
All right. Now
So you
people
believe the
people
person
think,
was a manifestation of ISIS. Okay.
okay, yeah, you can say it if you want. I can't. But she's known by 1,000 different names here on this world. And apparently she was instrumental in helping originally set up what we've become, and then she rebelled against that and ultimately started working against the Luciferian agenda. So she's a bit of a rebel, and when she said we, I think that's who she was talking to, referring to, was this group that they wanted me to stick around and help them expose this, because obviously that's what's happened. Right? It wasn't like, hey, we're going to just make your life better. No, there was a quid pro quo there. Of course, I didn't see any contract, and I don't think they were highly manipulative about it. They just asked me, hey, if you want to stay, we'll help you. Okay, good, because I needed help. And in return, I guess I would assume I'm helping them in what you just described. You know, yeah, they don't look at us as insignificant. They know we're part of something divine, okay? The beings that are not psychopathic or Luciferian really do love us. They've made that very clear to me, that I have a hard time saying this, that their love for us is never ending, no matter what. It's unconditional. Sorry.
Okay.
It always makes me emotional when I think about it, though, because it's just, I've had them demonstrate that to me, and it's like so overwhelming, Carrie. It's I choke up every time I think about it, because I don't even know that I feel worthy for that kind of love as a human being here, considering all the crap that we're doing to ourselves and each other. It's hard.
Well, I can say, I think we're worth it. And I have to say that, in essence, you are a spirit inhabiting a body, and this is
Right.
a human body at this time. And to do justice to that, this is an experiment. Do you agree? The human race is part of a grand experiment, and that basically this is an interesting, you might say, a nexus where many, many races have come together to be involved in this experiment. It also has to do with getting along on this planet. We are, as I say, boots on the ground for various ET races. Our genetics is not all the same. Our DNA
Right.
is different, and there are different, if you will, waves of us coming through at this time. And so that I think that should give you a lot of hope. I do appreciate you, helping write the book with Wes. And I think it's a very important topic. There's no, we're not going to exhaust it this evening. But I will say that I don't know if you're aware of Pete Peterson, who we interviewed quite a while ago, who talked about, the races of basically robots, and what we're talking about is the Terminator scenario, and Skynet, and Anthony Sanchez, who has talked about the nano satellites that are in the skies above our heads at this time. I don't know, how far you've gone in those directions with regard to AI, but this is a reality. So this is what's going on here. Have you had any interaction, let's say, since you did deal with Washington, have you been approached by any insiders who have given you information, have talked to you about things to do with artificial intelligence and the nano satellites, etc.?
No, but as I was writing the second book in 2011, I was contacted by the U.S. Capitol Police in a manner that allowed them to have plausible deniability. But what they were doing was confirming the eyewitness reports See, because I contacted them originally, because when I wrote the article and then the book, I wanted them to be able to make a statement, because it makes them look bad to have that kind of activity going on in the Capitol grounds, and they're not responding. Okay, something's not right with that picture, and so I didn't want to embarrass them. I just, anyway, so that kind of put me on their radar. Plus, the photographer was having a dialogue back channels with them. He gave them copies of the picture, and they were saying, "Whoa, yeah, that's what our officers are seeing when they're on patrol, and they're putting it in their logs." And I'm like, "Well, my God, can you redact that somehow? Can you black it out? Like, can you share that with us?" And they're like, "No, we don't even run the show here, And I was like, "Oh, okay." So, but anyway, they wanted to tell me unofficially that their officers were seeing these objects coming in, these sphere-like objects were coming in, and like they said for sure these things are monitoring all the activity there, but they don't know who's doing it. So one of the things that some people say when they see these spheres, they think it's intelligent or alive, but that doesn't mean it's not synthetic. It
Sure.
could be that you can see how our drones are advancing rapidly, and obviously at some point they're going to become completely autonomous, and they're probably going to look like natural systems, like real dragonflies or something. So with cameras and all that, sensors. I think the same thing is true for this alien technology, that a lot of times these sensors, drones, just look like a ball of light and of various sizes, and they come in and they monitor us or the environment, and so that's something that's been with us for a long time, though.
Yes, I agree. In fact, I think I photographed one of those little sort of things in Adam's calendar when I was in South Africa. It came out on my photo, and I hadn't seen it with my naked eye, but it was an interesting little, it was obviously, whirring around.
Right.
So anyway, it's in the photo. So as far as, I'm going to look at the time because I'd want to stay on track here. Now we have quite a large audience as it happens, and growing all the time.
Good.
And there are going to be people that have questions. We have a chat room associated with this type of video.
Sure.
So if you're willing to take questions from the audience, they type them into the chat, and then I can select them and read them aloud, and you're welcome to answer them.
All right.
So we could do that. But before we do, I have just a couple last-minute questions. First of all, do you think that you've met some basically, cyborgs, android-type beings, and you've been able to spot them as such? Or not?
No, I think they would never release something like that into the population unless it could just blend in. Whether it's a real extraterrestrial or if it's a cyborg android type of thing, they're not going to do something like that to cause a panic, or better yet, get actual video or a blood sample or something. Sure,
but what I'm asking actually
have I?
Yeah,
no.
Do you think that you've met one that is so good that, you thought they were, I don't know if you know who Ingo Swann was.
Yeah, I know who he is.
Well, he claimed to meet one or two. Right. And, it is an interesting question. Of course, if one of our presidents is basically a clone, then you're talking about that sort of thing. Right. All kinds of people interacting with a president.
Right. Well, and I mean, even recently, Hillary Clinton, when she's on the campaign trail, jokingly said she was a robot that was built in Palo Alto. And yeah, it's really funny for some people, but to me, that was red flags went up. I was like, whoa, wait a second. That sounds really familiar, I was like,
well, I have actually had, I have a lot of contacts, sort of secret and otherwise, and one of them has told me recently that she's kind of been upgraded, so to speak, so that she can handle her new upcoming job.
Good Lord.
Giving away the secrets here, but at any rate, I guess the last question I have is, I think this guy Wes Penry is quite interesting.
Yeah.
Is he? Would you say he's quite a mysterious guy? And
No, not at all. No, he's just a normal family man, goes to a regular job, but he's had some sort of interest in, he started off writing Illuminati news website. And as he was investigating the Illuminati, he started realizing there was something more to it. And that's ultimately how he came to the awareness of the extraterrestrial component, the Luciferian agenda, in all of this, the sort of the backstory that most people miss, right? When they're studying extraterrestrials or exopolitics, it's not all sunshine and lollipops. There's some really dark, shadowy things going on there, and I know it's a mixture of both. Okay, it's not all good, it's not all bad. There's a lot of shades of gray involved in all of this. But
sure.
Since you're in Westlake, you might want to go hiking in the mountains. Have you ever go hiking in the mountains behind you?
All the time.
Okay, so if you go to my website, click on articles, and go to Megalithic Monuments of Malibu, that's where I had the close encounters. But you'll also, if you check out that article, you'll see some huge megalithic statues that are really ancient up in the mountains just behind you.
Excellent.
So, and there's also a trail map, so I'm sure you can figure out how to get there and go hiking and check it out for yourself.
Okay, very, very cool. Okay, so I'm looking in the chat. If you have questions, could you please put them in all caps? And I'm going to scan scan it for just one moment here. See if there's any. Lots of chatting, but I'm not seeing any question marks, actually.
Okay.
And I guess maybe you could do an update. I know you have your own radio show. Is that correct?
I did for a period. No, I've been busy with other things. I mean, I could start it up tomorrow, but honestly, I've been really busy writing and, moving over here, taking care of my family. My son's getting ready to graduate university. And so it's...
Okay.
As you know, look, here's the thing. Anybody can do a radio show, but to do it well, you have to have really good content and you have to have a lot of guests.
Yeah.
And it's also become so competitive, Carrie, because there's so many people now that have shows.
Everyone's doing it, yeah.
Right. It's like, so I tend to shy away from it at this point. As far as producing it.
Well, I mean, there's reasons to stay in the game, as they say. And I kind of have a Wild West approach to my own show. I do it when I feel like it every week. But if I don't feel like it, or I haven't found a guest that I think is worth talking to, then I just don't bother.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I think staying to a schedule at this time, when we have such a strange, what's going on in the world is very sort of strange right now. So
yes,
I think you need to stay open on a certain level. Okay, so I am going to read you a question here. All right. So it says, can you clarify your view to do with Enki, Enlil, and their family, and the fact that you think they're reptilians?
Oh, I didn't say reptilians. They do have some reptilian. They're humanoid, though. Enki allegedly is, like his mother, is amphibinoid. So even though she's a reptilian, he is, or they are, they're humanoids. They're just, look, I mean, we are all amphibious in the womb, right? When we come out, we become more mammalian. But the truth is, we all have we're a bit of a hybrid. My understanding is that the king Enlil, the queen's husband, is actually a wolfen humanoid from Sirius. And and their son Enlil, the prince, also known as, some people call him Michael, the opponent to Lucifer, is he appears to be human, but again, we're talking about beings that are transdimensional. They can shapeshift, and it makes it very confusing. Not only do they have many different names and titles, but they also can appear in many different forms to us. when they so choose, and it's an issue. I don't know if that's technology or if that's a technique. I'm still confused about that. But
Okay.
so go ahead.
So now all the questions are coming.
Oh, okay.
So someone else wants to know is, can we prevent abduction?
Oh man, not that I'm aware of. I know some people say you just say the name of Jesus and it works. If that works for you, great. I mean, honestly, whatever. I have not really heard, or I don't know of anything reliable. I can tell you that the work of David Paulides is very disturbing to me, because he's proving what was told to me, that a lot of people that are abducted are never returned. And I was told that, but I wasn't sure until I started. And in fact, the most recent book by David Paulides about hunters being abducted and not returned, he said that Bruce Maccabee's wife was almost abducted by one of these entities, and she took pictures of it, and that it looked like the Predator. That the way it moved through the bush, it had that optical stealth camouflage.
Very
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say, because we're bringing this up, that I got a letter from Mark Richards recently, Captain Mark Richards, who I've been interviewing now from the Secret Space Program. And he says that a lot of the people in Syria and Iraq that are supposedly in war-torn areas are actually being taken off planet and, meeting very dire ends in terms of what the reptilians are really doing. He says that the refugee situation is in no way accounting in terms of actual numbers for the number of displaced people in those countries at this time, and that the fact that there's no uproar about it is actually pretty scandalous, and I think that's fascinating. I think that's probably true, and I can say that we do know that millions of children go missing every year, in not just the United States, but in other countries as well. And we're also talking about, I guess there's somebody who does an investigation into national parks and the
That's
number of
David
people that
Paulides.
disappear.
Yeah, Missing 411 is the book series, and I think it's a website. His name is David Paulides.
Okay, so it's him. Yeah, I didn't remember his name. Okay, so let's see, what else? Do you know about the Vril? And asking you about the Vril and drones. I mean, I'm sure he knows about drones, so I'm not sure what you're talking about, the Vril.
Okay, that's the energy that the Thule Society of Germany, secret society, Thule, okay, they said that this was a cosmic energy, sort of like the Force in Star Wars, but yeah, there's a technology that incorporates that. I'll briefly go back to what I said about this goddess-like woman that I met. The crystal, actually, in Sumerian terms, would be called a tablet of destiny. They're not tablets, they're crystals, and they're not really crystals. You can see this in the movie The Avengers, when Loki, which is another name for Lucifer, when he's got that thing, it's called the Tesseract. So if you Google Tesseract, what you'll see is that although it looks like a cube, it's folding in on itself all the time. And what that is what a quantum computer does. It literally reaches over to other dimensions, and becomes like it's a portable gateway. Now, the Anunnaki use this for medicine or healing. They use it for telecommunications, warfare, and something else I'm not quite remembering now. But it's a technology. Okay, it is a very, very efficient tool.
Okay, and so you're calling it the Vril.
The Nazis called it something like that, or I should say the secret society that was integrated into the Nazi movement. They were the ones behind it, and Hitler was part of that. And apparently Hitler did have some sort of encounter with a being, if not Lucifer, some other being like that.
Okay, someone here is asking, is there a connection to the Gnostic descriptions of the Sophia incident?
Yes, yes, there is, and I do write about this on my website in the article section, "Birth of the Archons." Um, the Gnostics do talk about it, but what little we have, unfortunately, is only, it's like a tip of the iceberg. Okay, so they're blaming the goddess Sophia for the creation of the demiurge or the aeons. In essence, Lucifer is a creation of the goddess, and that part is essentially true. His mother is the Queen of Orion originally. She created most of this, what we think of as our universe here. She created this world. She created us. But she also created Lucifer. If we remember, he wasn't always like this. He had something snapped in him, and he went crazy, and he's been a problem ever since. Okay? So the demiurge, according to the Gnostics, is something that took over this planet and it's created like what we're talking about here, like synthetic life forms. They're not real. They don't have a soul. And do they walk among us? Yeah. Did they create religion here? I believe so. It's all designed to control us, to serve an agenda. Yeah, I think it's the Luciferian agenda is a better term for it. Yeah, they're real.
Okay. Someone here is asking if we're really in a frequency prison and who controls it.
Yeah, again, yes, we are, as far as I know. Again, Wes Penry talks a lot about this. And there is some sort of, not only energy coming out of Saturn for this region, but there's something much larger. It's a cube, and that we're all contained in that. And essentially, it's just a soul trap. When we come here, it's next to impossible to get out. Even if we think we're going to do good when we come here, ultimately they erase part of our memory and trap our souls here. Recently, there was an article came out about scientists had discovered what they call an energy grid around the planet. They said it looked like something out of Star Trek, and they had no idea what it does or what it's for. I say it's for keeping our souls here, recycled here again and again and again to serve this greater agenda.
Okay. Let's see. Are you familiar with the work of Paul LaViolette?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And the notion of the superwave?
Yes.
And have you considered that idea, and also the idea that we're moving into actually our galaxy is merging with Sagittarius, from what I understand?
Okay. Well, we absorbed the Canis Minor. Milky Way absorbed the Canis Minor some time ago, and that's what our solar system is really part of. That was absorbed into the Milky Way. And the Milky Way and Andromeda are merging. Supposedly it's billions of years from now, but we're already gravitationally locked. We're doing this. Okay, so even if it's billions of years from now, this is happening. Anyway, yeah, the super wave is interesting because I was shown when I asked mentally, how is this going to be resolved? Some sort of wave action washing over the planet is what I saw that would literally wake up parts of the DNA that have been switched off intentionally in us, that would allow us to go from dial-up to broadband, and that it was going to freak a lot of people out because suddenly they would see things that they've never seen before that are in the environment that we're basically deaf, dumb, and blind to intentionally, okay? And I'm not the only person who's talked about this, by the way. There's other people who saw this wave coming. Now, Wes Penry says that the extra energy from the galactic center is something we started to experience from 87 till 2012. He calls it the nanosecond. And having lived through that, I know, yeah, that things accelerated greatly. Our consciousness has been upgraded, but it's not there yet. That was all preparation. If you lived from 87 to 2012, that was just preparation for what comes next. I don't know when it's coming or exactly what it's going to look like, but I was only shown a glimpse of it, but it's going to be profound, really profound.
Okay, well, I would say it is already, we're already experiencing it, and it is incoming at this time. Well, Ashiana Dean in her work calls it the stellar activation cycle,
Okay.
just FYI. So, and it actually culminates in 2017 as it happens. Let's see. So somebody is asking, do we have no choice in incarnating? Yeah, this is, this is pretty old news. So if you're asking that question, you need to start doing some research on your own. But go ahead and answer, Robert.
Yeah, I think that we do have a choice. Actually, this was something really intriguing that Wes Penray is the first person I've ever heard talk about this. He said that because our consciousness is upgrading and our intent is to get out, we want to be free. That's part of our natural state of being as a soul. We do not want to be imprisoned. So what's happening is there's holes. We're breaking this energy grid around us is breaking up somewhat. And so as a person leaves their body during death, as opposed to going back, they have the opportunity to pass out of the grid. It's now more of a grid. It's not such a solid thing anymore. It's like there's an opportunity for people to actually get out. But they have to be prepared for it. They have to know not to go to the false light and be tricked by so-called spirit guides that are pretending to be your long-lost grandmother or whatever, trying to trick you to come back and incarnate again down here at this time.
Okay. Okay, let me see. I'm trying to see if there's any other last-minute questions, because I think I've grabbed most of the ones here. Somebody's asking about blood types. Do you want to address that?
The RH thing, people say is somehow connected to reptilians. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I can't say. I'll tell you this much. The work of Dr. Bruce Lipton is far more instructive if you want to learn about how humans operate on a cellular level. That there is, as I said before, we're easily hacked. There's information coming to our cells all the time through the environment. And that could mean from a totally different universe or a galaxy, or it could be right next door. It could be coming from the moon. It doesn't matter. It's our bodies receive it. Our cells receive information that is non-physical, transfers it into the physical body, and that affects us directly, for good or ill. So this is again why I was talking about that wave. If there is such a, yes, I know it's gradual, but there could be coming a time period where we hit that tipping point with the final wave that just goes like, boom, we're back. We're suddenly awake and aware of everything. There is no more secrets. You can't hide any. There's no shadows anywhere. Everybody is like, because at this point, look, if this is the known spectrum, we only see this much. We only hear this much. If suddenly we could have this much, whoa. I mean, it would be shocking to say the least.
Absolutely. Okay. In terms of, your research into Washington, did you never got into, what presidents know, for example?
Yeah, Grant Cameron does it. He does the best job on that of anybody. And
actually, though, I have to be honest with you.
What?
I don't necessarily agree with some of their conclusions about what presidents do and do not know.
Oh, yeah, they don't know much, that's for sure. In fact, they're just, see, here's the problem. In my estimation, we are conditioned to always look for someone, an authority to tell us what is or what is not real. We have to ask their permission, like, father, like the great father figure, whether it be for religious, political, legal, whatever. We're always looking to an authority figure to tell us what is reality. And that's a huge trap.
For yourself in those terms, because I can tell you I never had that problem, but I appreciate how some people do. It's just that I just was different from day one. But right. I call it the rebel gene, and I think basically the rebel gene is what will save us, humanity in general, and I advocate it at all times. But I appreciate what you have to say there. I do think, however, that presidents know more than they're being given credit. In fact, it's interesting because Mark Richards talks about how much Congress knows. And how many people actually know a lot more than they let on.
Okay.
There are a lot of people who are more in the know than they let on, and they pretend not to know because that's what they've been told to do.
Sure.
Yeah,
I can agree with that, but that doesn't mean they're in control of the situation any more than people in the Illuminati are.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
Yeah, they're all
Well,
working
knowing
for.
something and being in control are two completely different things.
Yeah, but that's the but see, but the perception of the public is that they are our leaders, so they must be in control, right? That's the perception.
Yes, I understand. Okay, I'm going to ask just a couple last minute questions. I don't see
Sure.
anything coming up here of, worth asking at the moment, unless that changes. But, we have a presidential election coming up. We've got some predictions about November and some crazy stuff that may be taking place. Do you and or Wes Penry have any thoughts about that?
I typically don't get involved in politics, and I don't think Wes does either. But I mean, I do watch it. I don't participate much because what's the point, really? I think typically we're looking for something called an October surprise. Historically, that seems to be the time. If anybody's going to pull some shenanigans, that'll certainly be. I'm really concerned that they've gone to electronic voting because it's so easily hacked. I mean, it's not like they couldn't rig elections in the past with paper ballots, obviously, the hanging chads, etc. But, look, things just aren't as they appear to be, unfortunately. And that's the harsh reality. I mean, I don't like reminding people about this, but I know your audience is well informed, so they should know this by now, that we're being played here. This is just.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but given, your sort of lifelong endeavor and being part of this, and you did decide to stick around, and that sounds, I'm glad to hear it.
Thanks.
So, what are you looking at in the future? Are you looking at a positive future? Are you just simply trying to inform people in hopes that the negative side doesn't prevail?
I'm really optimistic, despite all we've been discussing. I'm extremely optimistic, but I'm also a realist. I have to be very realistic about the situation we're in, and that's where kind of a balance of my reporting. For me personally, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, like I said, I live a really good life. Okay, don't get me wrong. I do the best that I can while I'm here to have a good life and try to help other people do the same thing. And so I don't know. Really, that's about all you can do. But I'll put it real quick. Stay calm, be kind, and also be creative. Those are three things that I think is like pouring water on a fire as opposed to gasoline. This is how we can take individually, we can take control on a very positive level by doing those three things on a daily basis. I know it sounds simplistic, but that's hard. It's hard to control your emotions and thoughts and stay calm. And being kind is difficult. Look how polarized we are. Everybody else's throat right now. There's this air of desperation. It's more important than ever, even just to smile at a stranger. It becomes infectious, okay? And that's a very positive thing. And do something creative. I don't care if it's just doodling. We need to do that because that's part of our divine nature. We were created to be creative. This is all a process, okay? We're part of that. Or not. That's a choice. That's a choice. And they can't take that away from us. The dark side cannot take that away from us. So the more you exercise your creative side, the more divine you will become.
Wonderful. Yeah. And I fully agree with that. So well said. All right. Well, thank you so much, Robert Stanley, for coming on the show, and everyone for listening and for participating. And I guess tomorrow night I'm going to have, or actually tomorrow during the day, I'm going to have Tony Gosling. We're going to be talking about Bilderberg and the upcoming financial situation. He's an ex-BBC journalist. So please do tune in if you can get around to it. And this will go onto YouTube for those of you who weren't able to be here the whole time. So thanks again, Robert. Great work. And thank you. Keep us informed and come back and stay in the game.
All right.
Okay.
Take care. Thank you.
Right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, so I'm going to run the credits here, Robert. So you don't have to stick around. You're welcome to actually hang up and then people will be able to see the credits when I throw those up there. So that's
okay.
it. So thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. you.